They were the kind of family you admired, happy, loving, and picture-perfect. The Alvarez family seemed to have it all, a beautiful home, successful careers, and two wonderful children. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming, secrets that no one saw. And then, one day, Maria Alvarez was gone. A devoted wife and mother. Vanished without a trace. No goodbye. No warning. Just gone.
A local mother of two, Maria Alvarez, was reported missing by her husband, sparking a widespread investigation. Authorities say Maria was last seen at a grocery store just hours before her disappearance. But what happened after that remains a mystery.
She wouldn't just leave. She loved her family. She loved her kids. Something happened to her, I know it.
Was Maria Alvarez the victim of a tragic accident? Did she leave on her own? Or was there something far more sinister at play? In the days that followed, the search for Maria would uncover disturbing truths about the Alvarez family. Lies, deception, and a case that would leave an entire community reeling. This is the tragic case of the Alvarez family. For those who knew them, the Alvarez family was the definition of the American dream. Luis Alvarez, a respected businessman, Maria, a devoted wife and mother, their children, Daniel and Sophia, bright and full of promise.
They were the kind of family you wished you could be. Always together, always happy. I never saw them fight, never saw anything out of the ordinary.
Maria and Luis had been married for nearly 20 years. High school sweethearts who built a life together from the ground up. By all accounts, they were inseparable.
Maria loved her family more than anything. She talked about them all the time. How proud she was of Daniel's soccer skills. How she and Sophia would bake cookies on weekends. She had this glow about her whenever she mentioned them.
To the outside world, the Alvarez family had it all. But behind the smiling photos, behind the home videos, things weren't as perfect as they seemed.
Hey, it's me. Just calling to check in. I've been thinking a lot about things. Call me when you get this.
In the months leading up to her disappearance, close friends noticed a change in Maria. The once cheerful, carefree woman now seemed preoccupied, distracted, even scared.
She didn't say much, but I could tell something was wrong. I asked her if everything was okay, and she just said, "I'm handling it." I wish I had pushed harder.
One night, I saw Maria sitting in her car in the driveway, just staring at the steering wheel. She sat there for almost an hour. It was like she was debating something. I don't know. But when I waved at her, she just smiled and went inside.
Was Maria keeping a secret? And if so, what was she afraid of? Behind the doors of the Alvarez home, cracks were forming in the perfect marriage. Luis was known to be charming in public, but those closest to Maria suspected trouble behind closed doors.
Look, Luis was a great guy, but he had a temper. I remember one time we were out for drinks and he got into it with Maria over something small. His whole face changed. It was scary. She just sat there, quiet.
Maria never said exactly what was wrong, but in the months leading up to her disappearance, one thing was clear. She was preparing for something big. Maria had been quietly moving money into a separate bank account. Was she planning to leave, or was she preparing for something much worse? Maria Alvarez was a devoted wife and mother, but on September 14th, 2021, she would vanish without a trace. As the hours stretched into days, the search for Maria Alvarez intensified. Detectives began piecing together the final moments before her disappearance. But the deeper they looked, the more unsettling the case became. Maria had seemingly vanished without a trace. No witnesses, no surveillance footage of her leaving the house, nothing. It was as if she had simply disappeared. Luis Alvarez, Maria's husband, was the first person police questioned. According to him, the last time he spoke to Maria was that morning before she left for errands.
Luis told us he was picking up his daughter when Maria disappeared. He said he had nothing to do with it, but we needed to verify his story.
The footage confirmed part of his story. He did pick up his daughter, but there was a problem. There was a 30-minute gap in his timeline. 30 minutes, where no one could account for his whereabouts.
We asked Luis what he was doing during that time, and he said he had been driving around waiting for school dismissal. But there was no proof of that. No receipts, no GPS records, nothing.
Then, investigators found something small but significant. Inside Maria's car, tucked between the seats, was a crumpled receipt. A gas station receipt dated just minutes before Maria arrived home. It was the last purchase she ever made. But here's where things got strange. Maria wasn't alone.
We pulled the footage, and when we zoomed in, we realized the vehicle looked a lot like Luis Alvarez's car, but it wasn't clear enough to confirm.
Was it a coincidence, or had Luis been following his wife that day?
I knew something was off with their marriage, but Maria never really talked about it. She just kept saying, "It's complicated."
Maria had confided in a close friend just weeks before her disappearance. She had been planning something. But what? Maria had quietly withdrawn thousands of dollars before she disappeared. Was she planning to leave? And if so, did someone stop her before she could? Days turned into weeks. Maria Alvarez was still missing. The search intensified, but answers remained elusive. And then, something happened. A discovery that would change everything. It was October 3rd, nearly 3 weeks after Maria disappeared. A group of hikers, walking through a remote wooded area, stumbled upon something unexpected. A torn piece of clothing. Torn, but not by nature. Someone had tried to hide it.
At first, we thought it was just discarded fabric, but then about 20 feet away, we found something else.
Maria's wedding ring, taken off, left behind. Was it a sign of a struggle, a message, or something far worse? With this chilling discovery, authorities expanded their search. Drones were deployed, K9 units scoured the area, but still, no sign of Maria. Maria's family was devastated. But Luis Alvarez? His reaction raised even more questions.
Luis, do you have any comment on the discovery?
I just want my wife to come home. What struck me was his lack of emotion. No desperation, no visible grief. It was as if he was rehearsed.
Then, investigators uncovered something shocking. Just 2 days before Maria vanished, Luis Alvarez had made a sizable insurance policy update on his wife. A $500,000 insurance policy, recently updated, and then Maria disappeared.
That wasn't a coincidence, it was a red flag. A big one.
Police have confirmed that Luis Alvarez made significant changes to his wife's life insurance policy just 48 hours before she was reported missing. Authorities are now looking into the financial aspect of this case.
She trusted him. She never thought he could do something like this.
And then, there was the final call. The last recorded conversation from Maria's phone. A conversation that may have sealed her fate.
Luis, I need to talk to you. I can't do this anymore.
You don't get to decide that, Maria.
With mounting evidence, police executed a search warrant on the Alvarez home, and what they found was damning.
We found traces of blood, not visible to the naked eye, but it was there. And when we tested it, it was a match to Maria Alvarez.
Maria had never left the house willingly. Something had happened inside those walls. And now, the truth was beginning to unravel. But was it enough to prove he was responsible? Or was there still another piece of the puzzle missing? The perfect family. Until one was gone. The Alvarez family was once the definition of happiness. 2 loving parents, a beautiful daughter, and a seemingly unbreakable bond. But now, that bond was shattered. Maria was gone. And the truth was becoming harder to ignore.
Authorities have officially classified the Alvarez residence as an active crime scene. Investigators are searching for any evidence that could explain Maria Alvarez's mysterious disappearance.
Inside the Alvarez home, police searched for anything, any clue, that could tell them what had really happened to Maria. What they found would drive an irreversible wedge through the Alvarez family. An earring, found in the garage, near the faint traces of blood previously discovered. It wasn't much, but it was enough to suggest a struggle. Enough to suggest that Maria hadn't just walked away, she had been taken. Then, detectives uncovered something else. On the day Maria disappeared, their daughter Sophia had missed school. Luis claimed she had been sick. But when police asked Sophia about that day, her answer would send chills down everyone's spine.
I heard them fighting. Mom was crying, Dad was yelling. Then I heard a big sound like something fell.
And then what happened, sweetheart?
Then it was quiet. Really quiet. I called for Mom, but she didn't answer.
A child's words, simple yet devastating. She had heard her mother's last moments, and now there was no turning back.
He lied. He lied to all of us. He said she left, but she didn't. She didn't.
Tell me you didn't do it. Tell me you didn't hurt her.
I didn't. You don't know what you're talking about.
Then where is she, Luis? Where is Maria?
Luis's own family began to question him. His alibi was crumbling, his lies unraveling, and then, his daughter's heartbreaking words sealed his fate. October 15th, nearly a month after Maria's disappearance, police made their move. They had heard enough.
Luis Alvarez, you are under arrest for the murder of Maria Alvarez.
As Luis Alvarez was led away in handcuffs, his daughter watched in silence. The man she had once trusted was now accused of killing the mother she loved. The perfect family was gone. Now, all that remained was a shattered home, a missing mother, and a father accused of an unthinkable crime. After months of investigation, weeks of emotional testimonies, and hours of deliberation, the case of Maria Alvarez was coming to an end. But even with the evidence presented, one question still haunted everyone in that courtroom. Would justice truly be served?
The trial of Luis Alvarez is now underway. Prosecutors argue that Luis murdered his wife Maria in a fit of rage. The defense, however, claims there is no physical proof tying him to her disappearance. With no body and no murder weapon, is there enough to convict?
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is clear. Maria Alvarez didn't just vanish. She was taken, she was silenced, and the person responsible is sitting right there.
The prosecution built its case on circumstantial evidence. The blood traces in the garage, the missing earring, the newly updated life insurance policy, and most damning of all, the testimony of Luis and Maria's own daughter.
I heard my mom crying, and then I never saw her again.
The defense argued that Maria may have left on her own, that she had been unhappy for years. But to her family, that theory made no sense. Maria would never leave her daughter behind. Never.
She loved her daughter more than anything. There's no way she would leave without her. No way.
After days of testimony and emotional arguments, it was time. The jury had reached a decision.
Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the charge of murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty.
Guilty, Luis Alvarez was convicted of murder in the first degree. A husband, a father, a man who once appeared to have it all, now convicted of taking his own wife's life.
Luis Alvarez, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
But even with a conviction, one question remained. Where was Maria? Without a body, her family would never have the closure they so desperately needed.
I just want to bring her home. No matter what happened, she deserves to be laid to rest. She deserves peace.
Luis Alvarez refuses to say what really happened that night, and until he does, Maria's story remains unfinished.
Maria Alvarez's body has never been found. Luis Alvarez remains behind bars, maintaining his innocence. And yet, somewhere out there, the truth still lingers, waiting to be uncovered. A family that once seemed perfect, full of love, full of promise, was torn apart by a single, irreversible act. Maria Alvarez, a devoted mother, vanished without a trace. Her husband, Luis, now spends the rest of his life behind bars, and their daughter, Sofia, is left to pick up the pieces of a life forever changed. Sofia Alvarez, once a little girl in a happy home, has grown up in the shadow of tragedy. She lost both of her parents, one to a disappearance, the other to a prison sentence. But through it all, she continues to move forward, carrying the weight of a story that will never fully be told. Maria's family still holds on to hope. Hope that one day they will find her. Hope that one day the unanswered questions will finally be put to rest. But even now, the case isn't truly closed. Without a body, without a confession, one question still haunts this story. What really happened to Maria Alvarez?
We believe we know the truth, but unless Luis Alvarez tells us where she is, we may never have absolute certainty.
And as for Luis, he remains silent. He maintains his innocence. And perhaps the full truth is something only he will ever know. A perfect family. Until one was gone. Maria Alvarez, a mother who should have been there to watch her daughter grow up, was taken too soon. Her case serves as a tragic reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even the most perfect lives can hide the darkest secrets. Perhaps one day the full truth will come to light. Until then, we can only remember, and we can only hope. In memory of Maria Alvarez. If you have any information regarding this case, please contact local authorities.